They entered the midnight archive, chasing whispers of forbidden knowledge. Emily, Ethan, and Logan thought they were uncovering secrets, but the truth uncovered them. Books that revealed their darkest regrets, a librarian who demanded sacrifices, and a final word etched in glowing letters: return. But as the library vanished into the freezing night, one chilling question haunted their minds. What if they never truly left? The moment the doors shut, an unsettling silence enveloped them. The once faint hum of the library now sounded like a heartbeat, growing louder with each passing second. Emily glanced back at the doors, but they had vanished, replaced by an unbroken wall of shelves towering above them. "This is not normal," Ethan murmured, his voice trembling. Logan's phone flickered, the screen showing strange static patterns before shutting off completely. "Okay, that's not good," he said, panic creeping into his tone. "Stay calm," Emily said, trying to keep her composure, though her own pulse raced. "We came to find answers. Let's not freak out yet." As they moved deeper into the labyrinthine library, the glowing books seemed to react to their presence. One book floated off the shelf and landed at Emily's feet with a soft thud. Its cover bore no title, only a strange, shifting symbol that resembled an eye. Against her better judgment, she picked it up. "Emily, maybe don't touch that," Ethan warned, taking a cautious step back. But it was too late. The moment she opened the book, the room shifted violently. The floor beneath them rippled like water, and the shelves groaned as if alive. A whispering wind rose from nowhere, carrying faint voices. "Can you hear that?" Logan asked, his wide eyes darting around. Emily nodded, her fingers tightening on the book. The whispers grew louder, transforming into a single voice, deep and resonant. "Knowledge demands sacrifice." The lights flickered, and shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls. Then, one by one, the books began to open, their pages flipping rapidly. From within their pages emerged ghostly figures, translucent and shrouded in faint golden light. Their hollow eyes stared at the trio. "Who are they?" Ethan asked, backing into Logan. "I think they're the ones who came before us," Emily whispered. "The ones who got lost here." The figures didn't move, but their presence was suffocating. Emily felt the weight of the book in her hands, now pulsating with energy. She looked down to find that its pages were blank except for a single line written in glowing script. "To leave, one must find the librarian." "The librarian?" Logan repeated, reading over her shoulder. That doesn't sound ominous at all. The figures surrounding them began to drift closer, their hollow eyes locking onto Emily as if drawn to the book she held. The whispers returned, now louder, and the shelves seemed to close in on them, cutting off every exit. "Run!" Emily shouted, clutching the book tightly as the trio sprinted down a narrow aisle, the ghostly figures trailing behind them. The shelves shifted, rearranging themselves like a living maze, blocking their path at every turn. The glowing spines of the books flickered, as though mocking their desperation. In the distance, a faint but distinct sound reached their ears, a rhythmic tapping, like footsteps echoing across a marble floor. "Do you hear that?" Emily asked, skidding to a stop. "Yeah," Ethan replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "What is it?" "I think it's the librarian," Emily said, her voice a mix of fear and determination. The tapping grew louder, more deliberate, as though whoever, or whatever, was approaching knew exactly where they were. The ghostly figures stopped in their tracks, as if retreating from the sound. "What do we do now?" Logan asked, his voice shaking. Emily clutched the book tighter and took a deep breath. "We find the librarian. We don't have a choice." As the tapping grew closer, the trio stood frozen, their breaths coming in short, terrified gasps. The shadows ahead of them shifted, and a tall figure began to emerge from the darkness, its features obscured but its presence undeniably powerful. And then, with a voice as cold as the grave, it spoke. "You seek knowledge. But are you ready to pay the price? The moment Ethan touched the cold surface of a mirror, it cracked, shattering into shards that floated around him. Each fragment reflected his greatest regrets. The time he betrayed a friend, the lie he told to escape blame, and the moment he chose comfort over courage. The air felt heavy, pressing down on him like the weight of his own guilt. "Let me out," he shouted, his voice echoing endlessly through the maze. But the mirrors only closed in tighter, their jagged edges seeming to taunt him. From the depths of his reflection, a shadow emerged, his own distorted image, a twisted mockery of himself. The shadow spoke in his voice, but with a venomous edge. "Why run, Ethan? You can't escape who you are." Meanwhile, Logan found himself in a void of shimmering light, surrounded by floating symbols and glowing pathways that flickered like static. The book in his hand pulsed violently, and the pages turned on their own, revealing cryptic messages in a language he didn't understand. But as he stared, the symbols twisted into images from his own life, moments he had buried deep in his memory. A voice echoed around him, cold and analytical. "You pride yourself on logic, yet you ignore the truth in front of you. Will you solve the puzzle, or will you let ignorance consume you?" The pathways around him began to collapse, one by one, forcing him to move forward. The shimmering void started to darken, and every wrong step sent shockwaves through his body, as if punishing him for his hesitation. Emily, trapped in the city of whispers, clutched her book tightly. The streets crumbled beneath her feet, forcing her to keep moving. The whispers were relentless, their accusations growing louder with each step. "You chose ambition over kindness. You left when you should have stayed. You knew the truth but kept silent." Tears stung her eyes as she ran, her breath ragged. The crumbling buildings towered over her, their windows glowing with eerie light. In one, she saw a younger version of herself, hesitating to help someone in need. In another, she saw her turning away from a chance to make amends. The city seemed alive, feeding on her guilt. But then, in the midst of their torment, all three heard a voice, soft yet commanding, cutting through their respective horrors. "Face it, accept it, or be consumed." Emily stopped running. She clenched her fists, turned to the nearest whispering shadow, and shouted, "Yes, I made mistakes. I hurt people, but I won't let those mistakes define me." The whispers faltered, their tone shifting from accusation to acknowledgement, and the city began to stabilize. Ethan, staring at his shadowy doppelganger, whispered, "You're right. I can't escape who I am, but I can choose to be better." The mirrors around him shattered completely, leaving him in an open space filled with light. Logan, trembling as the pathways collapsed around him, finally stopped running. He stared at the pulsing book in his hands and said, "I don't know all the answers, but I'm ready to learn, no matter the cost." The void erupted into light, and the puzzle pieces aligned, forming a clear path forward. The trio suddenly found themselves back at the grand desk, the books now closed and lifeless. The librarian stood before them, his face still obscured but his presence less menacing. "You faced the truth," the librarian said. "Knowledge is not just about answers. It's about understanding yourself. You may leave, if you're ready." The grand doors of the library reappeared, creaking open to reveal the cold, foggy town square. The trio hesitated for a moment, glancing back at the towering shelves and the librarian, who now seemed to fade into the shadows. "Let's go," Emily whispered, leading the way out. As they stepped back into the night, the library disappeared behind them, leaving no trace it had ever existed. The winter solstice moon hung low in the sky, and the first rays of dawn broke the darkness. They exchanged silent looks, each understanding that they were no longer the same. The Midnight Archive had shown them their deepest fears, their greatest flaws, but it had also given them the chance to grow. And as they walked away, Emily couldn't help but glance over her shoulder, wondering if they had truly left the library behind, or if a part of it would always linger within them. Lesson: the story of the Midnight Archive leaves us with a hauntingly beautiful lesson about life, choices, and acceptance. It's a reflection of the challenges we all face, the weight of our regrets, the fear of confronting our past, and the temptation to rewrite what's already done. Emily, Ethan, and Logan's journey teaches us that growth doesn't come from erasing mistakes or uncovering every secret. It comes from accepting who we are, flaws and all. Emily realized that some mysteries are better left unsolved if the cost is too great. Ethan learned that his mistakes and imperfections are part of what makes him human, and Logan understood that his past, no matter how painful, was the foundation for his present. They each sacrificed something precious to escape the grip of the Midnight Archive, but in doing so, they gained something even greater, a sense of freedom and understanding. This story reminds us that life is about moving forward, not being trapped by the shadows of our own doubts and regrets. It's a powerful message. True courage is in facing your fears, embracing your imperfections, and letting go of what you cannot change. The Midnight Archive tested their souls, but in the end, it also freed them. What would you do if faced with such choices? Would you have the courage to confront your deepest fears and accept yourself for who you truly are? Think about it. And maybe, just maybe, this isn't the last we've seen of the Midnight Archive. The Midnight Archive may be gone, but its secrets aren't finished yet. Asterisk, what happened to the glowing word return? Is the story truly over, or just beginning? If this tale kept you on the edge of your seat, imagine what horrors the next one holds. Subscribe now for more terrifying tales. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and family who crave spine-chilling mysteries. Who knows? The next story might be even darker.